I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. I'm excited, folks. I had Bo Polny on at the beginning of the year. Actually, he was one of only two people that got this right. Bo Polny and Charles Denner, the world-renowned cycle expert, and in his own right, Bo Polny is also a cycle expert. Comes at it a different way from the biblical aspect other than Denner. So they both came up with the same thing about almost perfectly. And Bo Polny said that on a Friday, next Wednesday, something epic's going to happen, which that was the absolute top of the market. And then he said it's going to be down 35 to 40%, 38%. But Nenner said he was more worried about the market being down, 40%, then going up, and and worried about 5% of profits. Went up 2%, went down 38% again. They got it right. Now let's back to Bo Polny. He's the guest coming up. He also predicted in the last interview he did, something big is going to be happening on the week of the 14th. Something big is going to happen. And the 18th, and he wrote this on his website, will not disappoint. Some event's going to happen on the 18th of September. Well, at about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, the snarky emails and the snarky comments started rolling on. Bo Polny, something was going to be big happening on the air. Well, it didn't happen until about 8 o'clock, and Ruth Bader Ginsberg died. Would not disappoint. So let's start there with Bo Polny in that monster biblical call. He is an analyst of time, he says. He uses a biblical perspective, something different that Nenner does, but he and Nenner come up with a lot of the same things. But let's just talk about Bo Polny. Bo Polny, the 18th of September, which is also Rosh Hashanah, huge Jewish holiday, Feast of the Trumpets. Some of my other people said, well, during that week, Wednesday, they signed a big peace agreement with Bahrain and UAE. That's a big deal. And then on Friday, Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies. What's the significance of Ruth Bader Ginsburg dying on September 18th, Bo Polny?
It has everything to do with life. Greg, and I appreciate you having me back on. I love speaking with you. You are truly one of the premier people to speak to, and I really, I'm blessed to be with you here on this channel. Yes, the 18th of September, I like I said in the interview prior, I had no idea what was going to go down on September 18th. But wow, talk about a big event. The Supreme Court of the United States is now short one judge. So that is an epic event because that delineates, that time point, that event delineates what's going to proceed and move into the future, because that Supreme Court justice is going to change dramatically the events of the future. So when that position is filled, you will find that the things that have been holding the world back, that have been basically an abomination to God, are going to soon be changed. And that directly relates to Roe versus Wade and abortion. So all of these things, we're going to discuss here in this presentation today. Greg, I've put together some incredible work here. This was coming to me in the past 2 weeks. Again, I wanted, after we spoke, the Lord said to me, or I had this feeling that we needed to do this interview. And as there was a specific date, it was Friday, October 2nd. And if you've listened to my presentations of the past, a key number is the number 1, 2, 4. Well, today is October 2nd of 2020, which is a 4. So we are living in epic times. The reason September 18th ended up being a very important date for the world is because we are living in epic times, Greg. And I want to start this whole presentation basically saying that none of what I've done or even have and have given to you and your viewers here today would have been possible without God. So I just wanted to let you know that all glory, everything that I'm giving you today and your viewers, I'm telling you, the presentation that I've done here and I've laid out, titled "The Beginning of the End," 2020, the beginning of the end, I know is going to blow your mind, Greg, and your viewers. This information, please pass it on to everybody and anybody you know, because we are living in biblical times that have been written about within the Bible. nearly 2,000 years ago.
Just so people know, too, they're seeing this going, what? Huh? I mean, Friday, well, we waited until after the markets closed on Friday. So it's a late Friday interview. It's airing Saturday, the 3rd. But when we did this was 10 October 2nd. Okay. So that's when we did this. And so, this is an amazing thing. Your thing is called The Beginning of an Analyst. It's a 40-page slide. It's totally free. I know you do cycle work for Bitcoin and silver and gold and the markets and other stuff, but you've always said in the past, you don't have to buy my research. You just listen to what you do. This will give you enough information. You don't have to trade. But for traders, you do that. We'll talk about that at the end. But let's start with your first slide, 2020, the beginning of the end, the secret scroll and its 7 seals. What's going on here? Why are we starting here? Why this?
So let's start with the Apostle John. John of Patmos, Revelation 1. Okay, this was revealed to him nearly 2,000 years ago, and it was not to be fully understood until the end where we're at. So we're here. I'm going to go through the timelines here, but there are 7 seals that are within this scroll. And the 7 seals are opened one by one by the Lion of Judah, which is Jesus Christ. And these scrolls, as they open, they bring upon the earth very large calamities and changes. But the opening of the first seal marks the beginning of all the changes in the world. Will never be the same from that point forward. So we're going to talk about what each of these seals are and where we are in present day relative to these 7 seals. Have they been opened? Has the first one been opened or not? So please pay attention, because we're going to go through the seals, and you're going to know exactly very soon where we are relative to these seals. Now, the reason I do this is because I am not a prophet, but in my heart, and I believe what I am is a watchman, and the Bible's very clear. Ezekiel talks about it. It says that if a watchman does not sound the alarm, I will hold the watchman accountable for the people's deaths. So what I am doing is I'm alerting, I am sounding the alarm of what is coming upon the earth. So the first seal, again, this is Revelation 1. Christ is the Lion of Judah, or the Lamb of God. These are 7 seals. And so the first 4 of them we discuss, and they're on page 4. But seals 1 through 4 basically describe the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Then once the 4 seals are completed or opened, or broken, probably a better word, broken, then we head into seals 5, 6, and 7. But for right now, the 4 horsemen is what people have heard about in Revelation. So the first horseman is the white horseman, and the white horseman is the first seal. When that seal is opened, that brings upon the earth, the world, changes that changed our world forever. That seal opened this year in 2020. So the first seal, as of this moment in time, has already been opened. So what is the first seal? The first seal is the coronavirus. Let me explain to you how I come to this, or how it is the coronavirus. Okay, because remember, the truth of the revelations of the seals were not to be revealed or understood, is the better word, until end times. Well, we are here. So what does the first seal, let's talk about the first line of this, what does it say? And I looked, and behold, a white horse. And this is page 7. And I looked, and behold, a white horse, and its rider had a bow and a crown, and was given to him, and he came out conquering and to conquer. What is a crown? So if you look at the definition of a crown, it's a corona. A corona is the same word as the coronavirus. Very strange that is the name of the virus that is upon our world right now. So that's the first piece of the puzzle. The second piece is described, he's given a bow and a crown. So where in the world would you and could you see a bow and a crown? So this is actually rather fascinating because myself, my family, we all went to Europe a couple of years ago. We paid for a guided tour, and this was of the Vatican. Now, the guide that took us through the Vatican actually let us know that once we got to the Sistine Chapel, the massive mural that was put together by Michelangelo, if you look closely at the picture of the alleged Christ in the picture, it's not Christ. This was even described to us by the tour guide. And when you do the research, you will come to understand that the picture within the Vatican is an Apollo figure. He's muscular. He's got defined facial features. This is not the picture and the picture of Christ. It's actually a picture of Apollo. And who is Apollo? Well, Apollo is the archery. He's the archer within the Greek mythology. And if you read further, Apollo is also the god of deadly plagues. Wow, what a coincidence. So now we've got
a crown equals the god of deadly plagues.
Correct, exactly. So that's the bow. So the bow and the crown. So there you go. And it was hidden within the Sistine Chapel for thousands of years, or hundreds of years in that case, since the time of Michelangelo. That is the first seal of Revelation, and it officially is broken. Now, the second seal of Revelation talks, it actually opened on May 31st. That was Pentecost. So if you go back to my prior interviews with you, Greg, what happened on May 31st? Well, what was May 31st? It was Pentecost. What is Pentecost? That is when the latter church descended upon the Holy Spirit, birth of the latter church, which we'll talk to about in a few seconds or a few minutes. But basically, the second seal brings upon the earth, it takes away peace from the earth, that people should slay one another, and was given a mighty sword. Well, that's interesting. What's going on the earth right now? Peace taken away from the earth, and the people slay one another. Have you turned the TV on, Greg?
Well, yeah, and one thing I was remiss in my weekly news wrap-up, Bo, and that was this Azerbaijan and Armenian war that's going on right now, and they are killing thousands of people on both sides. And Turkey, our NATO partner, is likely going to come in because they hate Armenia, and they had a genocide there because they deny it. But this is not getting a lot of press. I wanted to cover it. I just got too long and didn't cover it. But this is what you're talking about: wars, rumors of wars. That's a big one.
That's right. It's all hell breaks loose on earth, and so wars, rumors of wars, but basically peace. The essence of the second seal is peace is taken away from the earth.
Wow.
And that is what we're seeing right now. Now, so we've got the first seal opened of Revelation, the second seal open of Revelation, and actually the third seal is open of Revelation. That seal opened a month earlier. So and the reason it's a little earlier because the third seal extends all the way into next year. So we're going to see the effects of opening of that seal next year, and actually latter part of this year as well too. And that basically, the seal was opened. That relates to the Noah cycle that we talked about earlier, when on the 21st of April, something epic was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Remember that February interview?
Oil, basically, as the clock struck midnight, it was at zero.
Israel.
It was at zero.
Yeah. So in Israel time, which was the 20th here in the United States. So as Israel struck midnight on the 21st, oil went not only to zero, it went to negative $38 the first time.
The contract, yes.
And now the interesting thing is all these seals are opening on biblical time points, right? So Passover ended just a couple of days before that, and the first trading day was Monday, the 20th into the 21st. So that was right after Passover, and that was the opening of the third seal. And that also marked the exact time point. So and again, we're on page 11 here. So on April 21st, oil crashed to negative 38, And exactly 1 month earlier, on March 20th, so exactly 1 month earlier, March 20th and the 21st, the U.S. industrials crashed 38% down. And then while the U.S. dollar double topped at 104. And on that exact date, gold and silver began their multi-year bull market vertical. Okay, so that was a very critical time point, the March 2021st, April 2021 of this year. So that was the opening of the third seal, of which we're going to see the effects of this year into the end of this year, particularly November into December. And then we're going to see more next year, which we talk about the stock market here on page 12.
Yeah, hold on just a minute here. I want to unpack this.
12, yeah, so let's look at this together,
okay,
because page 12 is directly related to the third seal.
Oh, this is just amazing. I saw this chart. I thought this was an amazing chart where you charted it out, where you have your 38% drop, and that's in the line of another drop, and when you draw that line down, it shows where the market's likely to go the next time it craters.
Correct.
So tell me where you think the market's going to go the next time it craters.
Okay, so before we talk about that, Greg, look on the chart. There's a blue arrow, and it's marked, and it's pointing to October 2nd, 2020.
That's the day we do this interview.
Correct. Okay, which is 124. Now, from this time point, think about what happened at midnight last night. They announced Trump had coronavirus.
That's right.
That was midnight 124.
Yeah. Yep.
In Israel. Okay, so it's interesting that Trump was announced with his wife having coronavirus on 124, a biblical key date. Another example of key events happening on biblical key dates.
Okay, hold on a minute. I just want to get in here with you. Do you think anything's going to happen? Is this going to derail his election chances? Is this going to stop him from having a second term? What's your gut reaction on this?
Okay, so prior interviews, including this interview, we've talked numerous times about the Daniel timeline. It's a 1,260-day cycle. The first cycle completed on precisely oil going to zero April 20th, 21st.
That's 1,260 days from the time he was sworn in.
Exactly. Actually, it was from, go to page, if you look on page 12, Greg, it is, it's on the left side of the page, November 8th, 2026.
The election day. Okay.
The election day. So you can see the chart. I actually drew it out there. It's 1,260 days to the mark. That then began the second cycle for Trump. So Trump has a second 1,260-day cycle, which is just 3.5 years, which means that takes Trump into the end of 2023, the end into December of 2023. And again, we'll talk about that in a few minutes in this presentation, but that's a key time point. So back to the Dow. So from this event of Trump being announced on 124 with the coronavirus, okay, the stock market itself, remember I said is going to for our prior talk, we're supposed to see the markets drop on Friday. We did see that. And then following, now we're supposed to see a stock market rally. Not just yet. We're going to see some volatility this next week coming up. But by mid-October, expect a market rally. So the stock markets are going to rally into the election.
Wow.
Okay.
Ooh,
so
hold on. Let me get this right. So the stock market's going to rally to November 3rd or 2nd.
Ish. Plus or minus.
Okay.
It could be to the exact day. It could be to the week. The point is the markets are going to rally into the election. Following the election now, so the markets could double top so that we could see the market rise all the way to 29,500 on the Dow. I'm not sure. Again, I hate doing numbers. I do time. I'm a time.
You're talking when it turns. You don't know what the price will be. You just know where the turn's going to be.
Exactly. So it's supposed to turn on or about the election time point.
Yeah, and I got to stop you right here. Hold on. This I just think is bizarre. This is one of these things that I just think is really bizarre. So, and I know I asked you this before you came on. I said, "Did you watch the interview?" I said, "No, I didn't watch it. I didn't have time. I usually do, because I didn't have time to watch it. Usually do."
I was working on 44 pages.
I understand. Do you know that Nenner says that the market's going to rally in November, and then sometime in November it's going to it'll be over. It's going to have another leg down. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? He doesn't do what you do. You do biblical time turns, and he does something different. But man, you're rhyming.
Yeah, and I'm also looking at cyclical patterns that are pointing to actually right around the time of the election.
You don't do that. You don't come to your conclusions the same way, though.
I point. Yes, it's we're rhyming, which is beautiful. But my charts are pointing to the election time point. Then the markets turn down, and then we start heading down to against that 124, 421. The Vortex 9 number, then the 124, 421 number. So if you look at the bottom of the chart again on page 12, you'll see that it ends up getting in a 421 cycle, which takes us all the way into potentially, the time point of somewhere around July of 2021. So
and that's when you're saying the market's going to be down below 1,500.
15,000.
15,000. Excuse me. You're saying that this next move down into the middle of next year is going down to 15,000 Dow.
That's what the charts are pointing to. Again, I'm just giving what number it's going to be. I have no idea. All I'm telling you is that until July comes of next year, be careful. Be careful being in the markets if you're in the markets, because it's not looking good.
So it's going. So where do you think it's going? So, where do you think it's going?
Well, the chart basically has support on that black channel line coming in around 15,000 on the Dow, somewhere in July of 2021. On the bottom right side of the page.
Got it. I see it. I'm writing. I'm just a note for me.
Okay. So that's going to mark back to Revelation. That will mark the effect of the opening of the third seal of Revelation. And that will be the deflationary event that the third seal of Revelation brings, and that's only one part of it.
Yeah, hold on just a minute while we get in here. I've had lots of guests on, and there is a consensus. Martin Armstrong, other folks who've been on, Nenner. Nenner talked about deflation, and people say, well, my groceries are going up. That's inflation. That's happening at the same time. But we're talking about destruction of businesses, destruction of capitals, destruction of leases. They're suing. I didn't get this in my weekly news wrap-up view, but they're beginning. Landowners, apartment renters are beginning, like in Los Angeles, they're beginning to sue, saying, "Listen, you voided my contract. You took a contract for a lease, and you said you don't have to pay." And that's unconstitutional. And boy, that's another thing that Armstrong was talking about. This is this moratorium on evictions is going to end, and not only here in America but overseas. And this is a destruction of debt. This is destruction of leases, contracts. This is the destruction of businesses, capital. This is an unbelievable deflationary time, even though your groceries are going up.
Well, let me add that. So my presentation does talk about inflation in a few more slides from now. But before we get to the inflation side of this, think of this, Greg. How do you wipe out the middle class? How do you wipe them out? Well, let's say, the middle class probably own a second home, maybe 2 or 3 second homes. Maybe they have some rentals. Okay. So now most of these rentals or second homes have mortgages on them. And now you have mortgages on 1, 2. So forget your primary residence where you live. Maybe that's paid off. But the second, third, fourth homes you have, most likely they're not paid off. You have mortgages on them, so you have mortgage payments. So what's been happening since coronavirus, since this first seal opened up? Well, the banks they have their hand out, and legally they're still collecting. So the banks are getting their monthly payments on the mortgages. However, the renters, by law, cannot be evicted. So therefore, what's going on in the world? Think about how many people, renters, are not paying because they can't pay, because what you just described, Greg. If you don't have cash coming in, cash flow, how are your businesses are shut down? How are you making your rent payments to the landlords? So you're not. But the landlords need to continue making their mortgage payments. Eventually, it's called drying up. It's called not one of my very wealthy friends. He calls it staying power. The staying power only lasts so long if your pockets aren't deep. And so that's how you wipe out the middle class. Now imagine the second event, which
means they have to burn all their savings.
Exactly.
So
They burn all
basically,
their
the middle
savings and
class
they wipe out the
will
middle
burn
class.
all their savings in this leg of this pandemic.
Exactly. Then couple that, Greg, with a falling dollar. We're going to talk about that in just a minute because that's the second part of the third seal. As the US dollar falls, eventually you're going to have the bond market start to become a huge issue, which is going to cause a rise of interest rates. Now, you and I know flat out that housing prices are not based on what someone can pay to buy a house. Housing prices are based on what you can afford monthly payments of.
What are the payments, man? The dumbest question you can ever ask.
Exactly. So now you have two issues. One, interest rates are going up, and that is destroying the value of the house. So the house prices begin to fall sizably. Plus, you've wiped out the middle class because they don't have spendable income anymore. They've basically been wiped out trying to stay afloat. So that's what's going down right now. This is what's happening. And then when you read Revelation 3, it's really interesting. I did some good math for you here, Greg, and I think you and your readers will appreciate this. Third seal talks about, here's the words. And I looked, and behold, a black horse, and its rider had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard what seemed to be a voice saying, a quart of wheat for a denarius. Okay, so now let's do some math. Okay, so I Googled denarius, and denarius represents an ancient Roman silver coin. When Revelation was written in 96 AD, a denarius weighed, in terms of weight, 3.41 grams, which equates to 0.109634 troy ounces current day. One more step is let's look at a bushel of wheat, okay? Because it says 1 denarius for a quart of wheat. So now 32 ounces represents a bushel. So therefore, 1 quart, and we know that the price of a bushel currently is $4.69 for a bushel of wheat. So a quart of wheat, present day, would be 14 cents.
Wow.
Based on Revelation, okay, what states seal 3, when it breaks, which is Revelation 6, present day at $25 silver, that quart of wheat should be $2.74, which is 20 times higher, just on today's price. So we haven't seen the effects of the third seal opening yet. Are you with me?
Yep.
Okay, so now when we start seeing the effects of this, is the dollar collapsing. As the dollar is collapsing, gold and silver are exploding in price. So then we start seeing the effects, and then even if silver stayed at $25, that wheat would go up to $2.74 for the quart. So that's 20 times higher for the price of wheat.
Wow.
Now imagine if silver went to $60, right? That quart becomes worth $6.58, which is 45 times higher. Silver at $100 means that quart's at nearly $11, which is 75 times higher than current value. And then if silver went to the crazy price that people have referenced a few times of $600, the wheat's at $65 a quart, which is over 450 times from current prices. There is your hyperinflation. So food prices go skyrocketing. So it's not that you can't get food, it's you can't afford to get it.
Wow. And then now let's go on to the next. You want to talk about the dollar? I promoted all this stuff.
Yeah. So page 15 talks about the dollar. So there's several issues about the dollar. So on the chart that I present on page 15, there's a very, very important low that came in the year March and 2008 March. Okay, from March to March of 2020, that is exactly 12 years. Interesting math.
Wait. So let me back up for a minute. Let me back up just for a minute. So the hyperinflation starts next year. It begins next year.
No, hyperinflation started. Okay, so we had it.
It already had the big sale. In July, it was 17 and change. It went up to almost 30. Somebody asked me about this, saying, "Well, silver was supposed to take off." But I wrote it back and said, "Wow, it went from 17 to almost 30. It was up 80%." Now it's back down to around 24 as we're doing this interview. I think it's 23 and 70,
Right.
80.
We're going to get to that. You can ask me that question in about 30 seconds when we get to page 16.
Okay.
Because that exactly answers your question. So,
Okay.
so let's
Go back. I'm sorry.
The dollar, and the next chart is gold and silver, because that is answered. So on page 15, what happened is the dollar ran a 12-year cycle, which completed on the stock market crash. So the stock market crash of March, the dollar spiked vertical, came right back down and made a double top, and since then it dropped and it fell down to the neckline. On the left side of the page is an example of what a chart is called a head and shoulders. The gold dropped in August to the neckline, came back up, and it's the blue arrow. It says October. You see that blue arrow?
Yeah, I see it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's where the dollar is. It's about to break the neckline here in October and start to plunge deeper. And as the dollar's falling October into November, guess what gold and silver are doing, Greg?
That's on the next page.
Okay, so now, and before we talk about that, there's a very important time point, which is it talks about in the Bible, and that is biblically Leviticus 25:8-10. And what we have is a very, very interesting cycle for the dollar. In August of 1971, President Nixon ended the dollar convertibility to gold. Therefore, from August of 1971 to August of 2020, which is this year, that is exactly 49 years. Leviticus 25:8-10 talks about a jubilee. And so on the 50th year, you proclaim liberty throughout the land and to all of its inhabitants. And that starts on the Day of Atonement. The Day of Atonement, remember our last interview, Greg? 10 days of awe.
That's right, after the 18th.
Exactly.
The Day of Atonement is Rosh
18th.
Hashanah, the Day of Atonement, so people understand, follow you along.
So-
That's the day Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies.
On the 18th.
On the
And then
18th.
the 10 days of awe started.
And that ended when?
Well, September 18th plus 10 days is September 28th.
So that's it.
That's it. So now, to answer your question, Greg, go to gold, which equates to silver. So there's a big fat bubble on the right side in yellow. So there you go. So on the 50-year jubilee began on the Day of Atonement, September 28th, 2020. Gold and silver began their upcycle and are going to continue for years. So that's the second major time point. So the first time point one was in the dollar double topped and gold dropped in the green bubble on the 20th, 21st of March. The next key critical biblical time point for gold and silver is the Day of Atonement this past Monday, September 28th, 2020, when we now began an upcycle for gold. Now, all we're expecting now, and what we're still expecting is, which we haven't seen, Greg, is a very big price jump. So we've seen a nice move from March. So we had gold go to $22,075, but now we're looking for the next big price jump, and that's coming here and before the end of the year. Now, if you go to page 17, this is the chart that I gave you, Greg, and your viewers back in February, when I said that before October, gold is going to make a new all-time high. Well, it's exactly what happened. At the time, gold was $1,550 in February, and then in August, it went over $2,000. So now, and then what's supposed to happen here October is a new financial era relating to gold and silver starts in October. Well, the actual start date was the Day of Atonement, September 28th of 2020. So from that point on, now we're in October, we're supposed to see something really wonderful begin to happen to gold and to silver. And the reason something wonderful begins to happen to gold and to silver is back to what we talked about on page 15 with the US dollar. The US dollar is now going to begin its down cycle, its drop. And as the dollar drops, gold and silver get very, very...
Now that's the year of Jubilee, the dollar, the debt. The dollar's a debt.
The dollar's the debt, right.
It's a Federal Reserve note, promissory note. Federal Reserve note. Sorry, I don't mean to talk
Right.
over you. Go ahead.
It's nothing but fake money created by Satan, by evil. The Federal Reserve note is not money; it's fake money. It's an illusion. It's been created to control humanity, and it's controlled humanity for generations. But ultimately, real money is gold and silver. It's always been real money, and they've called it a relic and everything they wanted to call it, but in the end, it's money.
Well, and this is hold on. I just want to get in here with you, just so you know. And listen. They know it's money. They know it's money. I brought this up my week. J.P. Morgan pays a record $1 billion fine because it's so important to them to, of course, this is not a lot of money to J.P. Morgan, but it's still a record fine, they admit, to spoofing gold and treasuries. So they're pushing one down, gold, and they're pushing the other one up, the fake stuff, treasuries, that are just a ball of fiat dollars. I mean, right?
Greg, gold and silver are God's money. They've been money.
That's in the Bible. When you say that, that's a passage in the Bible.
It's factual. It's been money from day one.
Yeah.
And then what happened was, to the Garden of Eden, Satan got on the earth and he wanted to control humanity. So how do you control humanity? Well, there's been thousands of ways to control humanity, but now they're using paper money. And then Nixon detaches it in 71. So it's no longer convertible to gold. So basically, it's free floating, attached to nothing, backed by only, the U.S. dollar is backed by only
faith,
and by confidence.
Yeah.
That's it.
So the new bull market. When did the new bull market of gold start? Then
it starts October now, from the chart that we showed you. That I showed you on page 16. It started on precisely the Day of Atonement, September 28, 2020, that starts the new bull run for gold and for silver. So expect excitement for gold and silver. It's starting in October, okay? November is going to be pretty darn good. So we got a lot of excitement in November, and expect a spike. Usually if gold and silver are going to spike, it's because something happens. So my cycles point to a spike coming here, October into December, and then then we got some. But we do have a lot of volatility November to December. So ups and downs, but big moves still expected from this Day of Atonement, from this time point.
Isn't this more of a continuation of the bull market you basically picked? I mean, you have these corrections, these ebbs and flows. Isn't this just, if you take a chart, it's still doing this?
Right. That's exactly, if you look to page.
So it's really, when you say a new bull market, it's really a continuation of the.
Continuation, yes, but the next leg up.
Next
leg up, and next leg up, yeah, and actually, but
a new bull market. I mean, if from it being down, it's going to go back. Okay.
This is a time point of Leviticus, which just means that something big supposed to still happen. So we're supposed to see a move November, in late October, I would say November into December. The move into November is supposed to be something really good. Okay, so it's supposed to be a lot better, dramatically better than anything we've seen so far here, October into November. So that's the key that I'm trying to say.
This is for gold?
Yeah, and silver, right. So we're expecting something really good coming, better than anything we've seen so far for gold and silver.
In October, November.
Yes, and it starts in October. We'll start specifically the 28th of September, and now we're headed up. So we'll see what kind of move it's going to be, because, again, I don't like to do price, but I'm telling you there's going to be a very strong vertical move here in the month of November. And then heading into December. But then be careful in December, a lot of volatility. They're going to slam it. So remember, they hate, back to what we talked about a few minutes ago, Greg, yeah. They hate with a passion gold and silver. Why? Because it's anti-paper dollar, okay? It's the antichrist to the paper system.
Which is going to bring me to the next point. So people should expect, listen, nothing goes straight up. So if you're going to be getting into I always tell people, listen, go in and buy a core asset. And if you look at silver, I mean, it was $50 in 1980. It was $50 an ounce in 2011. It's less than half of that now. There's less risk in buying silver, but you got to buy it as a core asset. Don't trade it. You do have trading advice for people to do trading stuff, but you're saying just buy the asset and hold it.
I'm sorry, the trading advice is for paper. We want to trade contracts or options or whatever. But if you're buying physical, no, you don't, because the spreads are getting bigger. Remember what happened, and so you just get your hands in this stuff. That's all that matters.
And hold it.
You don't want.
That's all you're saying.
Yes.
Hold it as a core
Yes,
position.
hold it.
Don't worry about
If
the
you
price. You buy it.
gold and silver. Yes, if you believe in gold and silver, just get your hands on it, because even last time, Greg, what happened, right? It crashed in March. It went down to like $14, right? I wouldn't buy them hand over fist then, but the point was you were still paying spreads, and within about a week or two, the spreads jumped up like $3 every week on an ounce of silver, right?
Yeah.
So you were paying $10 over spot.
Yeah. And now it's come down. It's still at next.
But again, the next move vertical again. You're going to the next spike. They're going to increase the premiums again. So you can't trade the physical market because the premiums can outpace what the move will be sometimes. So the whole point
Because of demand. Everybody starts lining up their
physical in your possession. The trading advice, the cycle work is for, it's me to go speak with you, give your viewers some time points to look at, and the people that are trading the paper stuff, yeah, that's fun. But the point being is, the physical and paper are two different animals.
And you're just saying, get the physical and hold it as a core asset. Don't be cute.
Correct. Here's the prophecy from the prophet, Lois Vowel Sharp. Her words were very specific from God. This is what happens when this all goes down, okay? Gold goes off the charts, and silver becomes a new item of economic security, opens a new door of luxury to those who have attained this precious metal. So silver is going to blow away the moves of gold.
Wow. And on a percentage basis.
On a percentage basis, exactly. So that takes us to page 19. Page 19 is the gray horse. So we still don't have that horse. So that seal is not opened yet. So if you think what's going on with the coronavirus is bad, that's nothing. We haven't even seen anything yet with relation to what is described in Revelations. We're only seeing this is just the cusp of what has been written biblically. The fourth seal talks about death, it talks about famine, it talks about pestilence. Okay, so when you talk pestilence, you're talking like bubonic plague, which killed 25 million people, in Europe, which was, I think, a third of Europe. We're going to see biblical things go down. What we've seen so far, the seal one now is a start of the opening of the seals, the breaking of the seals. But fourth seal is when things start to get scary or more dangerous. Now, in the past, Greg, you know that I've spoken to you and we've talked about, you asked about Trump and the second cycle, right? So the second cycle takes us all the way into the end of 2023. And then when you start talking poverty, death, and the word famine, okay? So famine, that cycle from what I'm looking at, that cycle doesn't start until the year 2024, potentially. That is my best understanding at this moment in time. So 2024 is the fourth seal. So that begins Joseph's trouble, the time of Joseph. So we have 7 years of plenty, which we're in right now, 3.5 more to go, and then we start the 7 years of famine. We're in a critical time window right now. And again, the reason I'm talking with you, Greg, the reason you and I do what we do is it's to wake up people, it's to warn people. It's what a watchman does. But the point being is it's very important to be awake at these times right now, because once the fourth seal opens, then shortly thereafter come the fifth through the 7 seals. And read page 21. And if that doesn't scare you,
you're saying that, listen, I could always have more food. Forget all the other, whatever, guns and money, gold, silver, water and food. That's your primary 1 and 2 assets. Water, food, water.
I agree with you, but I also have to add, precious metals to that, because there will be food to buy. Still, for the next, because when gold and silver explode in price, right? And so we have these in triple digits in silver, you'll be able to buy all the food you want, right? So you kind of want to time it a little bit too. You don't want to put all your eggs in food and water right now, because basically silver is only under $30, right? You start spending your silver when it's over $100, right? When it's $200-300, then you can start spending your silver to start buying more of these things like water particularly, food assets, and you can start storing up more and more. And particularly, we're going to talk later about, the arcs of safety, because you really want to be prepared. And that's why, again, in my presentation, I love having the beautiful backdrops behind me. Why? Because that's God's country. That's God's safe havens. Cities are not the place that you want to be when the stuff is going on.
A lot of people are figuring that out now. Their building is exploding outside of cities. And, that's something that Armstrong was talking about. I mean, guy, he's flown all over the world, right? People employ him. He consults for the European Union. He's, pretty big guy. And he's talking right down to the granular level of get canned food. I mean, you don't have to be cute. You don't have to be, get meals that'll last 25 years. It'll never be cheaper. That's what he said. That's what Martin Armstrong said. I think, is that good advice, you think?
Well, yes and no. The thing is, you can only live healthy off of canned foods and storable foods for so long. You really, deep down need some fresh food.
Okay.
So that's the point of the safe havens, being in the mountains where you can grow your own food down the road. Not today. I'm preparing for those times. So you can, yes, you'll have access to dried food and non-perishable foods, but you'll also have access to fresh stuff because you can grow it. So that's the point of God raising his church, raising his money, so that they can prepare, because again, what's coming, it's on page 21, 22, and 23. I did this for your viewers, Greg. You start reading Seal 6, a great earthquake, the sun becomes black, the full moon turns to blood, and the stars fall from the sky. So we're talking, big events coming down. Talking meteors falling to Earth. So that's not even the seventh seal, because when you open the seventh seal, oh my God, Greg, go to page 22 and 23. The stuff that it describes. If you're in the cities and you haven't prepared, the 7 trumpets go down with the 7 bowls, and that's part of the 7 seals. So we're talking a third of the trees get burned up, a third of the seas turn to blood, a third of the water turns bitter, a third of the sun and the moon stars don't shine, locusts come upon the earth. Later on, 200 million men die within the army. So that's a part of the trumpets. You got the bowls, the 7 bowls, and we're talking ulcers for the people that took the mark of the beast. The seas turn to blood, drinking water turns to blood. You got scorching, the sun scorching everybody.
This is all in Revelation.
Yeah, these are pages 22 and 23. So we're not even there yet. So, and again, but I want to actually, and now that I've scared everybody, I want to give you the other side of this, okay? These things that are coming upon the earth, please listen carefully. This and these things are not for God's church, for God's bride to be, okay? If you have prepared, God's going to be protecting you, okay? These things that come upon the earth are for those who have not woken up, who refuse to wake up. It's for evil. It's for the demonic entities. This is God's wrath upon the earth for the people who refuse to be a part of God's kingdom.
But people who do not want to see the truth, I am the light, I am the truth, I am the way. People who don't want to believe in Jesus are given a grand delusion, as it says in the Bible, right? That's not an exact quote, but close. That's what you're talking about.
Exactly.
And their delusion's going to go poof.
Right. So that's why, yes, I want to point to how horrendous and horrible some of these things are. It scares me to read them. It's incredible. But then also God says that's not for you. That's not for my people. Okay. So the point is you will be protected. But if you refuse to listen, if you refuse to wake up, if you honestly think, the Bible, Revelation is not real, God's not real, there is no God, I'm telling you, there's going to be nowhere to hide. If you read what the 7 trumpets and the 7 bowls say is coming, there's going to be nowhere to hide. We're talking, one of the other ones, which I found was fascinating here, is 7 bowls, number 7. This is a worldwide earthquake. What does that mean? Cities and islands and mountains disappear, Greg. 100-pound hailstorm.
And what page is that?
7 bowls.
Oh, 23. Just so people know, this will all be in after the interview section to follow along. this presentation. You'll have it. This is free. There's nothing you have to buy. It's a 40-page, pretty in-depth presentation. There's a lot to unpack. So we're not going to get to it all. So you can go through the pages in the after the interview section on USA Watch that you are providing for free. Now, I know you're putting in, you're helping me today also putting some of these pages, but if they're not up long enough, or you don't want to freeze it, or you want the presentation in the after the interview section, all the pages that Bo Polny is talking about are in there. He's not going to get to every single thing on there. Otherwise, the presentation will be 5 hours long. So, but anyway, so back to you.
It's a link. You click the link,
right.
The PDF you're going to pull up. God has blessed me to do this for you and your viewers, Greg.
We appreciate it,
and that's why I'm doing it. I do it out of my heart to wake people up, and that's the bottom line on this. And I'm not making any of this up. I speak the truth. The words I get, they're all. What I put in here, they're cross-referenced with links that you can literally click the link and it takes you to anything part of the Bible. So I've cross-linked everything for your viewers. There's an incredible amount of work that's gone into this. Why? Because I'm a watchman and my goal is to wake people up. That's all I can tell you. And there's numerous other presentations I've done, but this is the latest. Now, again, Greg, I guess at this point we're at page 24. Yep. So the next few slides are from prior presentations. I just want to summarize. Daniel 2 talked about Daniel. This is a 2,600-year-old prophecy given to Nebuchadnezzar. Basically, Daniel described all the kingdoms of the earth that up until the return of Christ. Okay? Period. He described them all. So God wrote the story from the beginning. That's the bottom line of Daniel 2. The story was written from the beginning, knowing the end. And so we are blessed right now to live at this point in time to watch what the martyrs, what everybody has waited for 2,000 years. We're living in these times right now, Greg. The seals have begun to open. The feet, which is point 5 and 6 of the Daniel statue, that statue never ever, they try to bind it, but basically clay and iron don't bind, and they're never going to bind it, but they're trying to raise this new world order or this one world government. They'll get it for a moment in time, but it never binds, because basically the final kingdom is the seventh kingdom, where God carves out a rock with his hand, throws it to earth, and he basically destroys the statue. And so all the kingdoms fall, and then you have the 1,000 years of reign. And I basically summarized that, and I've done this. This is some really simple but incredible analysis that I got, and it describes basically the 7,000-year cycle of God, which describes the Jews and the Gentiles.
Okay, 26, yes.
Yes, page 26 talks, and I covered this before, but basically the 4,000 years of the Jews, that's from creation to the birth of Christ. Christ was born, I believe, from what we do the star analysis, it was 3 BC, potentially 9/11. So with 3 BC, that he lived to the age 33, which would have been to the 30 AD. And then we add 2,000 years, that would take us to minimum time point of about 2030. So from present, we have a minimum of about 9 years to return of Christ. It could be, if we have another 3.5-year cycle, well, then we have extra time yet. Could go as far as maybe 2037. So again, I'm not calling the day of the return of Christ. I'm telling you that the minimum time point would be 2030 before he could.
You're just calling a big window.
I'm giving you a window, but if you're not preparing, it's better to be a day early, a week early, 6 years, 7 years early than 1 day late.
Yeah.
And that is critical, because after that you get 1,000. Christ returns, but when before Christ returns, you've got the 7 bowls and 7 trumpets coming your way, and I don't all want to be a part of that. So please take the time to read what the 7 bowls and 7 trumpets are in the 7 seals.
And Noah's Ark, you talked about how it would rain and it would stop raining, and the rain would stop on I believe it was the date, the 18th of September.
Yeah, exactly. So
then but yet the water didn't recede until the following year.
The water didn't. So exactly. So Rosh Hashanah was when Rosh Hashanah, which is 150 days, which is when Ruth Bader Ginsberg died. Okay, that was the time that the water stopped rising. So God closed the earth. Ark hit its maximum peak in terms of height. From that point on, the ark is still floating in the water, and it continues to float for up to 370 days, which takes us all the way to April 26th of 2021. So that is the next,
That's from the 370 days from the very beginning, from the days rain started.
Exactly. Yep. So therefore, Noah was on the ark for just over a year from April 21. And April 21, again, was oil going to zero. So that's how crazy these timelines are. It's just incredible for me to see the layout of the timelines, and then it's just like, wow. Like you said, same thing. It's like, I wonder what's going to happen on September 18th, and then nothing. To all of a sudden you call me. Actually, I found out through you, Greg, when you called me. Greg, Bo, you wouldn't believe what just happened.
Well, my wife does YouTube comments, and she walked in and told me, "Whoo, Bo Polny is getting blistered." I said, "You're kidding." He says, "Oh no, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Whoo, man, it's relentless. People are making fun of him. And then all of a sudden, 8:02 or whatever, then 8:30, and all of a sudden, silence, crickets. OMG. Oh my goodness. Ruth Bader Ginsberg died on Rosh Hashanah the 18th when Bo Polny, something big was going to. You won't. It says it on your website. You put this up beforehand. Oh, it won't disappoint. And this brings me to I want to dovetail this in on page 28. Your Trump cycle. So you think Trump gets reelected? This coronavirus that he's contracted. Shake it off. It's okay. His doctor said it'll run its course in 7 to 10 days. That's exactly the course for hydroxychloroquine, zinc, and a Z-Pack. 7 to 10 days.
And remember, the stock markets rally into the election. Okay.
So when he pops his head out and says, "Hey y'all, I'm fine,"
yes.
That's what you're saying. Stock market goes up.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, into the election.
Well, when he got the virus, it went down.
Yes, exactly. And I didn't know. Remember, I said I don't know what's going to happen Friday, but I expect the stock market should drop into our interview, and boom.
You did. You told me
Friday.
that.
So so right now we've got the daily cycle patterns for the stock market, gold, silver, and the dollar. So it's pretty interesting, how this is playing out. But so page 28 talks about the Trump cycle, which is Daniel's timeline. So again, I believe by the time this Daniel's timeline is complete, the Trump cycle, all 4 horses of Revelation are riding. So all 4 seals are broken. And then after that, we start seeing seals 5, 6, and 7. That's my best interpretation at this moment in time. But again, the second Trump cycle takes us all the way, correct, into the end into December of 20.
And let's talk about abortion. I mean, Coney Barrett, which
right,
I have.
So this is really exciting. Yeah. So now so you're correct about the abortion thing blows my mind because, like we talked about, September 18th is pretty epic because when Ruth Bader Ginsberg died, that basically ties in with abortion. Let me read what I wrote. God created life, and the Roe versus Wade ruling of January 22nd, 1973 was abomination to God's creation. Note that from January of 1973 to January of 2022 is 49 years. Will this be the time point that marks the end of this ruling? So in other words, the 50-year jubilee starts in February of 2022. Does Roe versus Wade get repealed in 2022? In other words, a 50-year cycle, 49-year cycle,
wow.
Just like it's spoken in Leviticus, and that would take us to 2022. So that's interesting. But I'm just telling you that the Supreme Court issue is directly related to abortion because that is an abomination of God's creation. I'm telling you, the most offensive thing that our world has done is abortion and Roe versus Wade. We've killed, from what I understand, over 60 million infants.
40% are black. That's why how much the Black Lives Matter.
And when you understand the abortion thing, when you understand that this is kind of gets actually, and before we do the next page, just the last thing, this is a prophetic word. This is not my word. This is the word of, again, Lois Vogel Sharp, a prophet, God's word, prophetic word, on women's rights to choose. Please listen very carefully. A woman's rights to choose is nothing but an excuse for murder. Okay? It was created by Satan to murder, period. Okay? So a life is a life. Whether it's inside of you or not inside of you, it's a life is a life. And so a woman's right to choose is a phrase created by Satan, period. Okay? So that's really important. And then this gets kind of crazy because, so go to page 31, And then page 31, Greg, this is what you have said in a couple of your
I brought this up.
So you brought this up, and that's why when I did this, and I'm like, wait a second, there's a little more to this puzzle that kind of came to me. And the DNC convention, they had this logo, and if you look at the logo, basically you see it's a satanic logo. Now this is kind of crazy. So when you look, you know what that logo is? The sigil of Baphomet. It's the official insignia of the Church of Satan, and is trademarked and copyrighted by the Church of Satan. So exactly why is the left fighting for the woman's right to choose to prevent the repealing of Roe versus Wade? Think about it, right? So then if you look at that picture, and then go to page 32. So my kids were in the room the other day. I go, hey, check this out. And they're looking at this, like they're like, oh, that's just a coincidence. So you got the Vatican, right? Look at that. Look at what you're seeing on how remember, who runs the world? The world, Satan's been on this earth since the time of Adam and Eve. So there's been a long-standing agenda and a plan. The key word, a long-standing plan, okay? So you look at the Vatican. Next, you look at page 33, and there's the White House.
Wow.
Okay? And those lines are literally drawn exactly over top of the streets. So I didn't make any of that up. Those are exactly over the streets. So like my kids said, nothing is a coincidence. And then when you look further onto page 34, this is the big picture, okay? So that's the church, and then it takes you all the way to the Vatican itself. It makes up a massive key.
Huh.
Okay, so you tell me how that was a coincidence. There was a plan in mind. And the point being is, when you get, this is what I've been trying to show you, Greg, and your viewers, the plan in mind is illustrated on page 35. And this relates back to Daniel 2, about the statue with the feet, the clay and the iron never bind. So that they're not able to bind and stay together. So the White House and the Vatican are nothing but a replica of one another. It talks about the image of the beast in Revelation 13:11. And then, you have this, age of enlightenment, so everybody's talking, Greg, the age of enlightenment.
Yeah, there's no Christ.
Right. Okay.
Christ deniers. There's just aliens.
Right. Well, and so the aliens basically come into the picture, and they basically, so they create the illusion. How this is going to play out, again, I don't know. I'm just telling you there's a great deception coming upon the earth, because what is the deception? The deception is to illuminate you to their truth. Not to the truth, to their truth, okay? So let's read this here. The Antichrist kingdom's agenda will be to illuminate you with the truth, or the alleged truth, of who you are and where you came from. So what does illuminate mean? It means to throw light on a subject, to decorate with lights, to make illustrious. So illuminate is a synonymous with illusion. And what is an illusion? It's a thing that is or likely to be wrongfully perceived or interpreted by the senses. Everything that they're trying to do is to illuminate you, to enlighten you, okay? But what did Jesus say? Think about this. What did Jesus say? He goes, I am the light. I am the light of the world.
I am the truth.
Jesus doesn't need to enlighten you. He is the light. Okay.
Very good.
And so Satan's agenda through computers and technology is to deceive you and to give you an illusion of his truth. So that's basically how this is playing out. Page 36, it starts taking us to the rebuilding of the third temple, somewhere potentially maybe around the year 2024. And that's the Antichrist kingdom. Again, that's after the Daniel timeline completes for Trump at the end of 2023. And then that leads into the billion soul harvest. And then this is critical because, remember, Satan is going to remain on this earth, and it's going to be the rise of the wheat and the tares.
The weeds.
Okay? The weeds. And so you've got God, the wheat is God's church, and the tares are Satan and evil. And the people that refuse to wake up are stuck. So you basically have both rising until the return of Christ. And that's how it's laid out. And that's why it's critical to be awake to the truth. If you're listening to what we're talking about, Greg, it's critical again. These are things that need to be set up with God's money. So as God explodes his money and raises his money, the time of Joseph's trouble, the time of Joseph is coming, the famine's coming. So it's important to set up these arcs of safety. Again, Lois Vogel-Sharp is one of the key people that I know that has started them, but there's key safe zones throughout the United States. I think there's 5 safe zones in the United States that have been laid out. And then so these zones are all in the mountains. None of them are occupied yet. So don't start looking, hey, I want to get going to these places. No. They are to be built with God's money, just like they built the temple of Prior, with God's money, a time of Solomon. Areas will be safe, areas of safe haven. And then the page 39 talks about, again, preparation. We talked about earlier, but basically faith in Christ, number 1, food and water, gold and silver. And yes, I do reference and talk about cryptocurrencies. And the reason I talk about cryptocurrencies is because there is a financial transition coming. And so gold and silver will be a part of the transition, but so will cryptocurrencies. And I believe they might even move faster initially because there's less controls on them when these things start to explode. So cryptocurrencies will transition, your current financial situation into the new financial system that is coming online. And because, again, we've talked about September 28th, the end of Rosh Hashanah, the end of the days of awe. And now with gold, silver, Bitcoin is tied in with that cycle. So we have an up cycle coming for the cryptocurrencies as well. All I can finish with is know that, it talks about in Luke that your redemption is drawing near for this return of the Son of Man. We're getting there. We're still still years away. But before he returns, read the presentation. We've got the bowls coming. You've got the 7 bowls and the 7 trumpets, all within the 7th seal. Please read that. I hope that wakes you up.
And I just want to close with the near term. You're not worried about the coronavirus for Trump. You think this is going to add to the rise in the stock market into the election and maybe a little bit afterwards, right? He pops his head out at some point in 7 to 10 days from now and says, "Hey, y'all, I'm ready to go. I'm done. Everything's cool."
Yeah,
that's what you think.
That's
and the voter fraud. Read on this that it's awful. If you look at all the categories, you got Democrats showing up at Trump rallies at 20-25%, and the black voters are leaving them. They have Blexit, you have Leo Terrell, you've got Hispanic voters, an all-time high voting for Trump. You don't think the mail-in cheating is going to work?
Well, okay, what does the cycle say? I don't know. Events are hard, but I can tell you cycle. The cycle is a down cycle. Remember, when Trump won, decisive.
But I'm not society. You think Trump is in for that second cycle? That's what I'm talking about.
Right, but you're trying to tie in Trump with the stock market, aren't you?
No, I'm trying to whether he gets elected or not November 3rd.
Yeah, that's the cycle is a cycle.
That's a cinch. Right? You say that's not going to affect the voter fraud, the coronavirus. That's not.
No, but I want to answer that question a little different.
Okay.
I want to answer the question relating it to the first election.
Okay.
In the first election, it was a decisive election, and prices of the stock market exploded, correct?
Yes.
Okay. This election, even though he wins, it won't be like nail in the coffin finished, right? Because what's going to happen on the Democratic side. They're going to fight tooth and nail and everything else, right? So the point.
But they don't prevail.
Right. They're not going to prevail. But that's why the stock market's not going to explode after the election. And the reason being is because it's like he wins, but it's wishy-washy. You know what I'm saying? It's in the air still. And so that's why I believe the markets, from the cycle work, indicates the stock market turns down. And the reason is because it's not going to crash right away. But the point is, there's no decisiveness like there was in November of 2016. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But you think he's in for that cycle of Daniel 1260 years. You think he's in. You think he makes it?
1,260 days. That cycle began in April 21st of this year. And so, yes, the cycle is not going to stop until the end of 2020.
I'm hoping it's more decisive than people think, and just the money printing and the reality of the economy is very much damaged. I mean, I think the reality of the economy is damaged could also play into it. I mean, listen, we've got 60 some odd million people that filed first time unemployment, 60 million. John Williams says the real unemployment rate as of August, not adding up the 2 or 3 more million people that have filed, is 28%. In the Great Depression it was 25%.
Well, and think of what you're saying, right? So that's maybe the reason why the stock market, maybe Trump wins. I think the cycle has him winning. Okay, that's not the issue. Okay, the question is, why would the stock market turn down after the election? So who knows? So I'm just speculating.
But the economy's damaged. That's for dang sure.
The economy's damaged, right? It's like you're saying right now, the economy's damaged, and maybe that's why it turns down. So I don't know. But all I can tell you is that the Trump cycle. He basically is he's playing the Daniel timeline right now. We're in the second cycle of it right now, and that's going to continue. And then so I don't expect I see financial events happening that are not good for the stock market and for the dollar. So stock market has a down cycle beginning in November. The dollar has a down cycle beginning now. Okay, so all I'm telling you, the dollar is in a jubilee cycle for months, so it's heading down. And if that's happening, gold. Guess which way gold and silver are going?
Up. Right? It goes up.
Correct.
We've been on for
paper-based assets, stock market and the dollar. Paper-based assets are in a down cycle. They're heading down, and precious metals, as of September 28th, have an up cycle, including.
You're talking years to come.
Say again?
You're talking years to come.
Yes, and those time patterns are for years to come, because even the March crash of the gold and silver and the stock market crash, right? That started a multi-year bull market for gold and silver.
Nenner says the Dow, he's always stayed by this. He's been by this for a long time. And of course, when he first said it, people thought, ha ha ha, big joke. Of course, Nenner's not a joke, and either are you. But he thinks it's 5,000, and I've heard you say 6,000, 65, somewhere in that neighborhood. It's lower than.
Yeah, one of the charts I sent you earlier in the prior presentation. Yeah. Again, same thing. If after 2021, we still have the overall crash cycle for the stock markets. We're not out of the woods. They can print money like crazy, and maybe they print 5,000. I don't know what the number it will end up at. But the negative energy, when I say negative energy, means like downwards pressure, regardless how much money they're printing. The stock markets are not out of the woods until at least 2022 comes to an end. So that's all I can tell you. So 2022 is not supposed to be a good year for the stock markets either. So we'll see. Again, I don't watch the stock markets. I don't really look too far into the future. But when I did look last, I'm just saying that gold and silver have a very strong pattern. And the gold and stock markets, 21 and 22 are not looking real good at all. So don't expect a lot of excitement for if you're sitting in the stock market.
There's going to be a discount like there always is for your trading advice. You've said in the past, you don't have to buy my trading advice unless you're going to trade. You could just buy core assets and hold them, right?
Yeah, that's what we talked about today, Greg. You don't want to. You want to get your hands, if you believe in what we're talking about, you get your hands on physical gold, particularly physical silver. If you believe in what we're saying, pray on it and hold it. The advice I give, the cycle work that I do, the detailed cycle work that I do is for Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies. We include, I think, 12 alternate coins within our report, and we include gold and silver daily cycles. Those are for traders who like to watch the daily movement of precious metals and or Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Our cycle work's been extremely accurate, and we have a lot of excitement here heading into November. So yeah, if people are interested in our daily analysis and they're traders, then yes, use the same thing we've done before. It's USA 49, and they get it half price for a 14-day trial from $99 down to $49.
Okay.
But again, that's if you're a trader. Otherwise, none of this has to. The whole presentation of what I did today was I put together these 42 pages to alert the people to the world. I am a watchman. I'm just like you are, Greg, when you do your weekly wrap-ups. Why do we do what we do?
Yeah.
Because our goal is to get people awake to the truth of what is truly going on. And I really hope that the presentation I put together for you and your viewers today, I hope it really was eye-opening.
In this case, for this video, it's going to end on page 40, which is the most important thing: the coming of the Son of Man, the coming of Christ. That's what we're talking about here. Nothing matters but Jesus, basically. Okay, and then after the interview section, I will put links up so you could, go into the Bitcoin deal and go, get your discount for the cycle work there. Go into the gold and silver cycle work there. It's a key turn dates, I believe is what it's called. But I will put all that up in the after the interview section. You folks on YouTube, go up to the right through. There'll be a links. All links can be found on USA Watchdog. Go to USA Watchdog to the after the interview section. Bo Polny. Lot to unpack, and you actually glossed over some of the slides. So the other thing is that you will have the slide presentation at your disposal as well in the after the interview section. And of course, the name of it is The Beginning of the End. So there's a lot between now and the actual end, but 2020, the beginning of the end, is the presentation, also free. Bo Polny, thanks. Bo Polny 2020 goldforecast.com, I believe is the website, correct?
Yes, Greg. Greg, I got to bless you and your family and your wife. I love you for all the work that you do, each week here.
Well,
God looks after us, and this is what we do. And you're right. All that matters really is to get people awake to Christ, because for things that are coming upon the earth, if you haven't prepared, it's not.
I have had people in the past, because nobody's 100%. No, I don't care who it is. Netter, nobody. Rickards, nobody. You're in that group of forecasters, cycle work, people like that. But wow, you have made some monster calls, going back to the 1045 call of the bottom of gold on the day it bottomed at 1045 in that cycle in November of 15, I believe, November or December, I don't know.
December.
Was it December? Okay. Well, you made some monster calls, and this thing at the beginning of 2020 was it's going to be down 35 to 40%, 30%. And then the 21st of April, something big's going to happen. Oh, it goes to zero. It expires on the 21st at 0 and 38 down for the contract. The barrels are worth more than the oil. And so, wow, now we have this. But, I had a lot of people, chide me over this. What you've done on record that I know of, that I heard with my own ears on this site, you've been fabulous, right? I know you have a cycle work that you print out for people, so it's also in writing and documented as well. And on your site, that what a call. The 18th will not disappoint. There's going to be something big happen on the 18th of September. That's one of the key monster things of this election, which is why they have to have their baby killing. It's a baby. It's not tissue. Listen, if a woman wants to cut off her arm, that's your body. That baby is a separate DNA. That's not you. You don't get to drown your kids in the bathtub. You don't get to blow your son away if you don't like him, right?
God created life, Greg, in His image.
That's right. What did Jesus say? He didn't say, "Don't mess with my, with my black people," or "Don't mess with my white people," or "Don't mess with my Asians," "Don't mess with my old," "Don't mess with my." He said, "Don't mess with my little ones." Isn't a baby a little one?
That's why this issue is
a monster issue.
To God.
It's a huge issue.
Absolutely.
Black Lives Matter. I think something in the neighborhood of 40% of the abortions have been African American kids, people, babies, right? Those lives don't matter. Anyway, Bo Polny, gold2020forecast.com. The links are in the after the interview section. The 40-something page PDF is free. Thank you very much for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
God bless, Greg. Thank you.